Hello future officers. UPSC Civil Services Mains 2024 examination is underway. Today the essay paper was conducted. We have the essay paper for you. We'll discuss the essay paper, we'll analyze the essay paper, we'll see all the topics, the 8 essay questions that were there, we'll see all of those. We'll also see what could have been written. Of course, the people who've written the examination today were under pressure. They might not be able to come up with the points that we will give you because we are in a relaxed environment. So the points we will be giving you will be better points, of course. But then you have to remember, when you watch this analysis, you have to think about the points that we're saying. Brainstorm about what we're saying so that when you write the examination next year or maybe the year after, you're able to come up with these points. And there are many essays where you can directly use these points. So I'd like to know if you can hear me and if you can see my video. Please let me know in the comments. I'll wait for a few seconds. Okay, so I guess we can move ahead. I'll show you the question paper first. So this is the question paper. 2 sections are there in the question paper. This is the section A. It has 4 questions. You have to write just 1 question. And then you have section B, which has 4 questions again. You have to choose just 1 question and write it. Let's look at the questions one by one. Section A, the first question is, forests precede civilizations and deserts follow them. This is the first question. The second one, the empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. The third one is, there is no path to happiness, happiness is the path. And the fourth one is, the doubter is a true man of science. So these are the questions in section A. Let's look at section B. The fifth question from section B, which is the first one of section B, is social media is triggering fear of missing out amongst the youth, precipitating depression and loneliness. The sixth one is, nearly all men can stand adversity, but to test the character, give him power. Seventh one is, all ideas having large consequences are always simple. And the eighth one is, the cost of being wrong is less than the cost of doing nothing. Like I said, you have to pick just 1 question from each section and write. But the catch here is, you cannot just write the answer when you get the question paper. This is essay paper. You have ample time to think. So the first half an hour, you always have to pick the topics which you are very good at and then brainstorm. Make a structure. You get rough pages at the end of the answer sheet. Make a structure and then you have to start writing. So you can utilize the first half an hour to think about the topic, the one which suits you the best. You have the most points, a good anecdote, and then you have to structure it well in the rough page and then start writing. That's how it goes. Now we'll discuss all of these questions one by one. So the first question, that is from section A, forests precede civilizations and deserts follow them. So this one will be discussed by Atif sir. He'll give you points on how you could have written or can write about this, and he'll also give his point of view on how the question is it very similar to what the questions were earlier, and he'll tell you how to go ahead with this one. So we'll invite Atif sir now and he'll give you the points.
Hello friends, and thank you Arunav sir for giving me the opportunity to discuss the first essay of the paper of Mains 2024. But before we start, as Arunav sir said here, that first we should brainstorm the essay, and if you've chosen this essay, then first you should brainstorm and select the keywords that are there in the essay. As far as I think, we'll have forests, number 1, civilizations and deserts. These are the 3 keywords that are there in the essay. So it's basically an essay that is from the environmental section. You should have an idea of environmental sciences as well as the civilizations that have been there throughout the history. So now, the quote is from a famous French poet, Francois René de Chateaubriand. He is a famous French poet who has used this word, and a recent article in the Down to Earth said that there are about 30 million hectares of land in India that have been desertified. That is why the desertification is a concern in India. So how should we start the essay? If you have understood and if you have done the brainstorming, then first what you should do is to get the context of the essay. And if you know that before the mankind was there were forests, and all the forests have led eventually to the humankind or the civilizations. So you should go into the past and start from there and give an example. Before giving the example, first start with the introduction. Your introduction should include how the forests have helped the civilizations to grow. First, you should explain properly the impact of forests on the civilization. How we're going to do that is the important things like food, fodder, medicine, and all the important things that the forests provide that have helped the civilizations to develop. As an example, the Indus Valley civilization that developed in the fertile ranges of the Indus River, or the Mesopotamian civilizations, or all the civilizations, they have developed in these regions because of all the natural resources that were available to them. After you're done with this, you can use the second part of the essay, that the desertification caused due to the human activities. Human activities due to rapid urbanization, agriculture, and all these things lead to the desertification. So basically, desertification is the end of the life cycle of the civilization. And if you look at the history of these civilizations, they have started from the areas that were probably very flourished with the forests and other things, and then eventually there were deserts, like that of the Indus Valley civilization, Mesopotamian civilization, the Nile civilization on the Nile River. This should be your introduction part, where you introduce the topic so that the examiner knows that you have basically understood what the question is demanding, using all the statistics that I mentioned here, as well as the name. If you remember the name, well and good. If you don't know about it, you can go with the data and then give a brief introduction in which you mention about the role of the forests in the civilization, and then the impact of the humans on the civilization, the ecological footprints. You should use the proper terms, the ecological footprints. Then when you go to the body part, there you have to give the case studies. Case studies, you can start with India and then go to different parts of the world. In India, you will have the very important civilizations like the Indus Valley civilization that was in the northwestern part of India as well as in the parts of Pakistan. They started there as there was a fertile range, but due to their activities, they had the knowledge, then they started urbanization. It was the urbanization period that started to demolishing of the land, it started to get degraded, and eventually led to climate change. And there are a lot of things that you can get from history, so you should have a good knowledge of history for this. Then you can go abroad to the Nile civilization that flourished on the river Nile in Egypt, and again the same thing. Then the Mesopotamian civilization, who were very great in the agriculture, but their over irrigation led to the salinization of these places. This is how the humans have impacted all the civilizations that have been there. So all the forests, starting from a forest and then going towards the degradation of these areas. Then you can link it to the modern history or the present day examples, in which you can use the examples of British India when they forced the Indians. They forced the Indians to grow the commercial crops, the indigo plantation, you might have heard of about it, which led to famines. A lot of famines were there throughout the Indian history. You have read it in history, how the famines affected the livelihood, the business, entire businesses. And this is how the problems started to grow and eventually led to the desertification or the degradation of land. Even today, if we see, due to the rapid urbanization in some areas like the Amazon basin, there you can use the examples, present examples are more relevant. That is why you should use the example of Amazon as well, where there's been cutting of the trees that has led to the desertification of that area as well. And you should know some of the technical terms like the climate tipping point. It is a point beyond which we should not go. It is a threshold where we should stop. These are some of the case studies that you have to use. Then you should have some counter arguments as well that you can use here. Is the Japanese that use the sustainable agriculture, how they manage these, the indigenous communities, how they work, the Chipko movement and all the activities that have gone down. Then you can use all these examples, and that is how you should make the essay complete one, starting from the problems and using the current examples like the Amazon one. And you can use the example of the Indonesia as well, how they have done the deforestation for the palm oil, they are concerned about the palm oil because of the rising demand. You should integrate the economic point there as well. These are some of the examples of that. And then the way forward is very simple that you use in the every question of economy is that the sustainable agriculture, reforestation and reforestation and afforestation, and all these things that have you been using for so long, and all the government initiatives that government is taking for preserving the water bodies and preventing the over irrigation of the places. So that is how you should approach this question, the first essay of the paper today. Now that's all from my side, and I would like to call Saundarya ma'am for the second essay. Over to you, Saundarya ma'am.
Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing good, and today we had our essay paper conducted by the UPSC. So I hope by this time you would have read all the questions. So now let's start with the second question, and thank you. So this is a very interesting question because you can write so many, so many perspectives to answer this particular question. The empires of the future will be the empires of the mind, right? Okay, so before we begin to write the answer, what is the first task that we have to do? We have to pick out the key terms, right? So what are the key terms given here? Empires of the future will be the empires of the mind, right? Okay, so we identified the keywords now. So what we have to do is we have to first interpret the question, interpret the statement, and identify what is something that we have to write for this answer. Okay, so what is mean by empires of the mind here? Empires of the mind refers to three things, that is knowledge, okay, innovation and creativity. So this is how first we have to break the questions using the keywords, try to add some alternate words, try to rephrase the sentences in as many ways as possible to identify the correct relevance of the content that you have to give, right? So this is about knowledge, innovation and creativity. By the empires of mind, we mean here that knowledge, innovation and creativity are something that is going to drive the future. Okay, the future empire is going to be decided on the basis of these three elements, that is knowledge, innovation and creativity. And talking about how to write answer for this particular question, so for any essay that you take, we have three major problems or three major things to be set in place, starting from, okay, so let me tell you, starting from identifying or understanding the question. So you have to pick out the correct and the relevant content to answer the essay. And second thing comes, it is about the arrangement of the points that you will be writing in a proper order. Okay, here you have to bring in different perspectives and you have to also arrange it in a proper sequence and the order. And third one is you have to also provide some relevant examples. So if these three things are sorted out, then your answer is going to be an average answer or a good answer, right? Now let's try to fix this for this particular question. Empires of the future will be the empires of the mind. So now what is the relevance and what is the content that this particular question is talking about? It is saying that no more the military might or no more the natural resources or the geographical locations are going to decide whether you will be having a power or not in the future. It is all about the knowledge, innovation and creativity. Clear? So here what we have to do is that we have to give an hint to the examiner that we understood the context of the question properly in the introduction, right? So what we have to basically write in the introduction, we have to write the context of the question given in the statement in the introduction to give the examiner that you understood the question properly. Clear? So what I can write here, I can say that, okay, so the empires of the future will be decided by the knowledge, innovation and creativity. Okay, and then what else I have to write in the introduction? I would prefer not to write examples in the introduction and try to write the reason behind this particular statement. Okay, so why it is first of all given? It is because we can see a seismic shift underway where these three elements are going to play a key role, starting from the globalization, technological advancements and the intellectual capital in shaping the country's future, right? So this is how the shift is happening in recent times. So you can add that reason to your introduction. So writing these two things will cover your introduction. Okay, so it is no more about the depth and breadth of the territories or the treasuries of any country, but rather it is about the depth and breadth of knowledge and innovation they have that is going to help them remain powerful, right? And the reason being, as I already told you, it's because of the shift that we are seeing in recent times. So this completes your introduction. And what we have to do with the body of the essay, we have to expand this. We have to, substantiate this content that we have given in the introduction with some examples. So how can we basically do that? So we can divide the essay content in the body of the essay under 4 to 5 subheads. First, we were talking about some shift, right? So let's explain about that. So what is the shift that you're talking about? So what was the condition before this particular shift, okay? And then we have to write how this knowledge, innovation and creativity can actually, lead to this empires of future, okay? And third thing, although we have these particular things in gaining control of the future, it is also associated with some challenges. So what are the challenges related to that? And finally, conclusion. So these are the 4 things that you have to discuss for this particular essay. So talking about the shift, okay, so how this shift is happening, it is because in the ancient civilization, like taking examples from the ancient civilizations of Egypt and Rome to the colonial powers of Europe, we have seen, okay, so countries, gaining powers through their military might, military supremacy and the territorial expansion, etc., right? But what is happening in today's world? In today's world, countries who are actually able to, harness their power of knowledge in driving their economic growth, in driving their global influences, are remaining powerful. How? We can take example of United States, right? So it exhibited its dominance in the Silicon Valley, and now it is the global leader of technological innovation. We can quote some examples, like we have companies like Apple, we have companies like Facebook and Google shaping the contours of digital world today. Clear? So this is how we have to write examples for each and every point that you are going to make, right? So this is all started because of what? Because US is a country which is actually giving more preferences to innovation and knowledge, okay? So research and development is the primary driver of the economic growth for this particular country, and that is why it was able to do this, right? And what are the other examples that we can talk about? We well know that China is one such, again, a legend in doing all these things, right? So China's Belt and Road Initiative. So it is a very brilliant idea, okay? So by means of which what China is basically trying to do, it's trying to create a vast network of cultural exchange and innovation of technological ideas throughout Eurasia and beyond, right? Okay, so how it is possible? It is because China was able to harness its technological powers, harness its economic power in this fashion, okay, using this knowledge, innovation and creativity. So this is the another example. And talking about India, so what we can talk about India, we can say that India's thriving software industries and the skilled labor force, has made India to be called as the back office of the world. So this is again something which has to be dealt with these 3 things, right? Okay, and now we recently had this Israel attack, right, where it used the walkie-talkies and the pager blast, etc. So again, opening a new window for the future warfare, where we are going to make use of the cyber and the technology to, lead the world, right? And you can add that examples also here. So these are some of the examples to say how the power of technology and how the power of having influence and edge over technology is going to give you more power. And then talking about the challenges that we have, okay? See, this shift is done, and how it is able to do that thing is because of their ability to harness the power. And what are the challenges that are there? See, in spite of having these significances and edge over the control of vast resources, because of having these 3 things, it is going to lead to some of the challenges like digital divide, okay? Because not every country will be able to harness every technology and share the ideas also, right? So it is going to lead to digital divide, okay? And then it is also going to pave way for knowledge gap. And it is also going to lead to some of the intellectual property and concerns related. So it is also going to affect the homogeneity of cultural values, because largely the cultural norms are being shaped on these lines, right? So it is again going to affect that. So you can talk about the cultural aspects also. Okay, so these are some of the challenges. And for this question, if at all you want to bring in some other perspectives in place in addition to technology, you can also talk about the cultural, okay, values and innovation, like how the European Union is from the beginning giving more importance to this cultural exchange and education-led cooperation, right? So it has its Erasmus program also, by means of which it is favoring all the students from the Europe to study abroad. So it is basically one who has the power to retain the retain the knowledge-rich resources, human resources in the country, is again going to be powerful, right? Like how the brain drain of US has helped it to have an edge over technology. So you can add about this perspective also. I think this will cover a whole range of topics that you can elaborate in your body of the essay. And then finally, to conclude this, again reiterate the same thing, that it is indeed going to be the empires of mind that is going to lead to the empires of the future. And here you can give some examples of like famous quotes also, like Aristotle has given one famous quote, right? The knowledge is the ultimate power. And then you can also try to conclude that although it has its challenges, it has also paved way for technological cooperation, knowledge sharing, etc., because it is happening in recent times, right? So because we are collaborating with other nations also. So I think this is something enough for you to cover a whole range of topics that you have to pick out for this question. And now we will have Monica to carry forward from here. Please, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you, Saundarya. Hello, everyone. My name is Monica, and we are gonna understand what could be written on essay topic number 3. The topic is, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. Let us understand the essence of the topic. The essence is that happiness is not the end goal, but it's a journey. This is the essence of the topic. Happiness is not the end goal, but it is a journey. Now we'll understand what are the keywords that is in the topic, and we need to decide our essay around that only. There are two keywords. One is path and the other one is happiness. And it is saying that there is no path to happiness. Happiness itself is a ultimate goal. So now we can relate to what are the paths which we as a society has been told that these could lead to happiness. Now the paths generally which has been told to us is economic success could lead to happiness, academic success could lead to happiness, or individual judgment or individual accomplishments could lead to happiness. These are the general paths which we have been told that it could lead to happiness. Now we need to come up with negation of this so that it suits the anecdote for our essay. For instance, if someone with economic success has committed suicide, or the larger democracies which are not doing well in terms of happiness could be the anecdote for this thing or could fit our essay. There is a report called World Happiness Report, where Nordic countries are consistently in the top ranks. For example, Finland has been one of the countries who has maximum world happiness. Similarly, there are countries like Bhutan who is doing good when it comes to happiness. So they are not very economic superpowers, but still these countries are doing great. That means that it could fit our anecdote. Bhutan, though, you can fit in here. Next is academic success not leading to happiness. Any one of the anecdote could fit in. I'm just sharing all of it so that you can choose between what is your pick. So academic success may recently we heard that NEET AIR 1 of 2017 has committed suicide. That person must have thought that gaining AIR 1 in NEET would lead to happiness, but it was not the case. So this could fit our anecdote here, where academic success didn't lead to happiness. So you could have started your essay like that. We have understood the keywords, we have established the anecdote, we have mentioned a report also. Then you can process some of the key areas or dive into some of more dimensions in this essay. For instance, what we confused happiness with is pleasure. There's a difference between these two words, pleasure and happiness. Pleasure is short-lived. Pleasure is conditional. If you do something, you will gain happiness. It's not right. What you get is pleasure. So we often confuse pleasure with happiness. Happiness itself is a journey. So pleasure is short-lived, momentary, and it doesn't survive long. After one immediate gratification, you need to move on to another pleasure instance. So similarly, happiness is an end game. So you can compare, you can dive into this dimension where you compare pleasure and happiness. After that, you could have discussed about some of the key philosophers who have mentioned that happiness is a state of mind. For example, Abraham Lincoln stated in such a way that as long as you can train your mind, you can be happy. So this is what he has said. Similarly, some philosophical angle could be offered from Bhagavad Gita as well, which talks about the theory of karma. You need to do your bit and then leave the outcome for the universe to decide. You don't have to worry about your outcomes. You just need to focus on your actions. So that could have been added in this essay. So this is the anecdote which I wanted to talk about. World Happiness Report I have already discussed. Nordic countries and Bhutan could have been used as an anecdote. There are multiple paths which society tells us that could lead to happiness, which are economic, academic accomplishments, and we have seen that it is not always the case. We have compared pleasure and happiness, and what pleasure gives is an immediate gratification. Happiness is a journey in itself. Then perspectives of Abraham Lincoln, Buddha, Bhagavad Gita. Buddha talked about suffering as desire as the cause of suffering. So that could have been added in this one also, because if you make your happiness conditional, so if you don't, you incorporate desires into it, and if you don't do well in terms of the actions which you wanted to produce a result, that could lead to unhappiness. So Buddha's perspective could have been included in this one. Then you need to move forward and talk about happiness as a state of mind. It's not about a conditional thing, or there is a no definite path towards happiness. It is a state of mind. As long as you can train your mind to be happy, you will be happy. And this comes from gratitude, acceptance, mindfulness, and living in the moment sort of a thing. So this could have been elaborated. Then we need to connect this with our syllabus portion also, where happiness, a lot of people have talked about egalitarian society having higher happiness. Here I've mentioned Nordic countries are doing good because these societies have less inequality. They have more better quality of living. So that is why those terms could have been included, where we talk about inclusivity, sustainability, equitable distribution, and social justice. In this way, you could have dealt with your essay. It's a very simple topic. You just need to remember the keywords, establish the link between the keywords, and explore the multiple dimensions around it. So this is one way of approaching it. Now I'm going to discuss another way with another essay topic. So next essay topic is the doubter is a true man of science. This is the topic. Here, we need to identify the keywords of this essay. There are two keywords, doubter and man of science. Doubter is the one who questions a lot. It talks about spirit of questioning or rationalism. Spirit of questioning and rationalism. And we are talking about if we start questioning things, we can be a person of science. So it may look like at the outfront that we need to confine ourselves at science, but this is not how we are going to approach this essay. What we are going to start with is we will mention the important discoveries which has happened in the past because of curiosity, inquisitiveness, and spirit of questioning. Almost every scientific discovery lies in this. You can have your pick. I am gonna, like, for example, Newton and he questioning the fall of apple could fit in, but it's a very generic concept, or it is a very generic anecdote. I wanted you to use something which is unique in itself. So we can talk about Copernicus and his heliocentric discovery. So what happened in medieval Europe was church was in the prominence, and church was answering everything. When it comes to health and medicine, church has the answer. When it came to explanation of natural phenomena, church had the answer. So church came up with an explanation about natural phenomena, that is, earth lies at the center and is fixed, and sun revolves around it, and it is called as geocentric theory. So Copernicus was not convinced with this theory, and he questioned the authority of church and the rationale with which this was propounded. So he came up with heliocentric theory, where he explained that sun is fixed and at the center and earth revolves around it. This was very brainstorming on his part, and the entire society wondered what else religion has told us wrong, because heliocentric theory of Copernicus questioned the authority of church and geocentric theory. So this is what we can use as an anecdote about Copernicus and heliocentric theory, because he is a doubter. He questions the authority of church, with which science again flourished, the authority of religion limited. So this we could have used. Apart from it, we should not confine ourselves with science. We will quote some people from other dimensions or domains who have questioned the authority, or in general who have questioned or asked questions. For instance, in the field of politics, in the field of economics, in society, environment, etc. These are the dimensions which you could have explored in this essay, where people have questioned the authority, where people have questioned the economic system around them, where people have questioned the society, religion, caste, gender, etc. norms, where people have questioned the way of development. And all these examples would have well fitted in this essay. So for politics, we could have we could have mentioned about the people questioning slavery, racism, and other exploitative systems. French Revolution, Russian Revolution, Renaissance, Enlightenment, all these concepts or all these historical events could have fit in well in this essay, because this all has the basis of intellectuals or spirit of questioning or rationalism. In terms of economics, still people questions the wage disparity between men and women. People questions the exploitative system or widespread inequality which exists in our system. In terms of society, people like Raja Ram Mohan Roy have questioned the religion, the practice of sati. Ambedkar has questioned caste system and its exploitation. And similarly, you could have explored other dimensions in society as well. Patriarchy in general. Environmental aspect, you could have quoted Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg is a climate activist who have questioned the authority of the political leaders of exploiting the natural resources and not thinking about sustainable development. So Greta Thunberg and the process of development and ignorance of environment could have been a part of this. So anyone who have doubted or anyone who have questioned the authorities could have fit in this topic. So this one I assume is a low-hanging fruit, because it's easy to deal with. A lot of historical anecdotes, a lot of current developments could have fitted in. Let us see what we have discussed. Anecdote Copernicus we have already discussed, and is heliocentric theory. Newton is a bit generic one, but even if you quote this would have fit in. Spirit of questioning and rationalization is the essence, and phenomena like Renaissance and Enlightenment fit into this. Philosophical perspective, you could have talked about Nyaya school of philosophy, which emphasizes on logic and questioning. So this would have fitted in. Apart from it, political perspective mein, the events around racism, slavery, French Revolution, RTI. RTI was also based on people asking and people questioning the government as to what authority you have or what are the rights which people should have in the democracy. Lokpal Bill, anti-corruption campaign, also people questioning the widespread corruption there, and that's when Lokpal Bill came. Societal perspective में social movements around caste system, around the exploitation of women, religious atrocities, all would have fitted in. Economic perspective, contemporary movements on wage disparity. You could have quoted the movement in Iceland where women, including their prime minister, protested against the wage disparity. So this could have fitted well. Wider income inequality, Oxfam report could have been fitted. Environmental perspective, Greta Thunberg and push for sustainability. Then after mentioning the peoples who have doubted the system and made the change, we need to mention the challenges that the system offers when someone questions its authority. So challenges is society favors status quoism. It doesn't appreciate a lot of change. Society prefers stability. So doubters usually tend to move towards social change. So that could be one of the challenge. Institutional resistance, status quo and conformity. A lot of people are in favor of conformity and they want people to be conformist. So we could have addressed this in a way that there are some challenges to the people who are questioning the system. But all in all, we need to realize that social change comes from people who question. So doubters in general provide the change to the system. This is how you could have concluded it. So a good essay should have anecdotes, should have statistics, should have examples, should have challenges and covers multiple dimensions. And this is what I'm showing it here. In the previous essay also we have addressed multiple dimensions, and this essay also we have done it. Now I have one more topic to discuss with you. And we are changing our section because the essay paper is designed in a way that 4 essay comes under one section and another 4 comes under different section. So we are discussing section B now, and the topic is social media is triggering fear of missing out amongst the youth, precipitating depression and loneliness. Like we have done in the previous essays, we'll discuss the keywords here. The keywords are 3 in this one: social media, fear of missing out, and depression and loneliness. These 3 keywords, here these 3 keywords are hinting towards a theme, and it is relating to the topic which we have in GS1 under Indian society, and the topic is relative deprivation. Relative deprivation means that someone has something, and if you compare it with your standards, then you'll realize that you are not enough. So that is the concept which fit in here. The essay could have been started with some statistics where you talk about people spending a lot of time on social media. You can also talk about people, the rate of isolation or loneliness which exists because of social media. People suffering from anxiety and mental challenges because of social media. All this would have fit in. Or if you could have mentioned the screen time in general, that would have also done the part on your behalf. So social media is triggering fear of missing out, but there is FOMO. So we'll discuss what could have been written. Some statistics I have mentioned here. Computers and human behavior says that 70% of the young adults reported experiencing FOMO from social media, and 38% of teens have felt the feeling of isolation and suicidal thoughts. So these are the reports which fit in. These are the statistics which could have used. The topic which fit in perfectly is relative deprivation. It is a topic. You could have also talked about subjective poverty, but I'm not sure if you have read about it. So these concepts would have fitted in. Then we need to explore some more consequences of FOMO. The essay topic mentions just one, which is isolation and depression. The other consequences could have been FOMO promotes haste for money because people feel relatively deprived. So there is a challenge in general to change the positions they are in. So what they want for is they ask for quick money and they go for shortcuts and stuff which could have worsened their condition. So it promotes haste for quick money. Perpetual dissatisfaction, because there will be always someone who is doing better. So there could be perpetual dissatisfaction. Loneliness and anxiety as mentioned. Then you could have mentioned one more statistics around it. We have EMI culture. India, out of like 10 iPhones, 7 are on EMI. So this is what could have been added, because these people clearly are paying for iPhones on EMI, which means that they have some sort of peer pressure around it, or it could have been FOMO. So you could have added this thing into this. And then talks about the advantages of social media, because the entire theme till now has been about the drawbacks or the flaws which we have. So social media is also an antidote for FOMO, where people support each other, or they realize the problem around it and they try to change the scenario around. So there are some campaigns: mental health awareness, it's okay not to be okay, and end the stigma, which talks or helps to cope up with relative deprivation. And at the end talks about general anxiety management things, digital detox, where we don't use mobile phone for some time, so that could be added here. And practicing minimalism as in to have less of the things. So these all could have been added. With this, we have discussed the 3 essays. Now I request Nandini to take over.
Hello everyone. So with this, we are nearly to the end of the discussion of this essay paper. I'll be discussing 3 out of them, and mostly they are a bit of philosophical in nature, and we'll quickly dive into it. Starting up with the first one, which is for me the 6th one, which is nearly all men can stand adversity, but to test the character, give him the power. So you all must have seen that generally when people ascend to power, or they get some sort of leadership roles for that matter, they generally have the tendency to change a bit. You would see the change could be positive and negative. It could really be in either of the direction. And this is something like this particular essay is mentioned out of a general observation made, I would feel. If we look into this particular topic, then we see in our general surroundings that people either become very generous or become very rude. You see in your daily anecdotes also, while you state a lot of things or generally converse with people regarding your, say, managers, regarding people, even in terms of when we talk about the kids in school, they generally mention that certain person was different while the person was, with us, and as soon as this person has got certain sort of responsibility, this person has changed completely. That is something that we are going to talk about in here. For this particular article, you need to understand that very first, the article is being this particular quote that is being taken, it is by Abraham Lincoln. He is the one who quoted this particular quote, right? And very important to understand that it is sort of generalizing the population, that nearly everyone does that, right? And to consider all of it, we also need to refute this particular statement while we generally explain this particular aspect of the essay. Now, what happens herein is we'll be considering 2 particular things, 2 aspects. One would be contemporary and one would be current, which is happening in the present times. So if you would have considered that we read a lot of history about Ashoka, what happened in there? That he fought a lot of wars. He was into a lot of violence and he was at a position as well. But after a while, when he saw a lot of things going in and around, he analyzed the situations. He felt like, no, this particular thing is not him. He needs something to go about. He would want to spread the idea of peace, and he would want to use his power for the very purpose of the good of the society. That's what the leadership role he talked about, and that's what matters in the current paradigm. And if we consider the current situation now, if we consider the present times, then we see Russia and Ukraine are two such places that in particular talk about this quote. If we say, what is happening herein is, if we see Russia and compare it with Ukraine, whatever your political stance herein is, we need to see that here Putin has been craving for a longer period of time the power aspect of it. The power is something which is driving the leader of Russia, wherein if we consider Ukraine, then the very purpose of the good of the citizen is something that is driving the leader of Ukraine. He had the authority, he also had the option to flee, he had the option to leave the country, but he chose that he wants to stay here. He wants to be with the country. He wants to be with the citizens, and that's what is making the difference here. That's what is making an impact here, and that's what we are being talking about herein while we talk about the test of character while giving in the power, while we talking about the power aspect of this particular essay. We also can see that when adversity is in general discussed, then adversity sort of also tries to bring about the people together. We see that there is a sort of shared sense of survival that comes in, that plays in while we talk about adversity, because adverse situations are such that brings about people together. When in power gives the person authority to act with his real self, to act for his desires, because in adversity we have some sort of external pressure on us. We have some sort of external driving force that we need to look after, wherein when we talk about power, then in particular there is no sort of external push for us. And that's when it is considered that the real change occurs. And that's why this particular quote said by Abraham Lincoln becomes very relevant in the status quo, that adversity is something that can be helped to check on the person, but power is something that would help you to see what the actual identity, what the actual intentions of that person are. If we move on to this particular topic, then we see that power in itself is a double-edged sword. Why do we say so? Why is it a double-edged sword? It is a double-edged sword because, as we see, as we have also discussed, that it can go in either direction. It totally depends upon the utilization of the person as to how that person utilizes power. If a person is sitting at a position, then the person is driving the change which is positive, or is talking about the negative aspect of it. That is something that pertains to deliver the very essence of power, that tends to talk about what power actually will be doing as such, and is the power being positively utilized or negatively utilized. That is something that is in particularly discussed herein and has to be incorporated in your answers as well. Moving on, as we see, as we have already discussed about adversity, that adversity is something that tends to bring us together. You all also can write that adversity is of varied types. It could be personal, it could be social, it could be economic, it could also be climate-wise. It can be of varied other aspects, and those aspects typically deal with the individuals, be it in the form of a group or individually targeting them. And that's what that's how they bring out the best in the person or the worst in the person. Usually adversity is expected to bring about the shared sense amongst the individuals. Like they usually come up together and they identify what is the pressing need herein. They do not look after the very fact that okay, we need to leave all of it and we need to only think about our desires. What do we want out of this particular situation? Usually in terms of adversity, when we talk about, then the personal goals are something that are compromised. On the contrary, when we talk about power, then power usually corrupts a person. It usually says, I mean, there is another quote that power corrupts person and absolute power corrupts a person absolutely. That's how we need to maintain a balance between the power aspects and our individual aspect. That without the external pushes, without the external intricacies of any other situation, we need to look after the very fact that we do not harm any other person. While we write an essay, it is very important that we balance out our point of views, we balance out our opinions, and that's what it matters in this particular situation, that we do not speak on the extremes of either adversity or power, we come on the middle grounds of it. While we talk about the corruption of power, then the examples that can majorly be quoted here, as I said, that one example is of Hitler that we considered of having, talking about the historical aspect of it. Second example could be of Russia, Ukraine. Also, the apartheid system, Nelson Mandela's example is something that can be quoted herein. We also have some social movements whose examples can be quoted, and also our freedom fighters and whatever the advancements over the time have been taking place, that can be quoted here very conveniently. Because you would see that in terms of power, just to gain that power, the person, the individual or the organization, it is on all the nuances, that particular individual, organization or person struggled a lot initially to get that power. The person was very soft. If I take a example quickly, then if we talk about Hitler for an instance, then Hitler during the time of World War used the situation of World War very, very conveniently, and pleaded the people in the name of nationalism, patriotism and whatnot, and was very soft with the entire country. He was very nice to them. And when he got the power, we all know what disasters he caused. We know that the entire situation could have been something different, but he chose some other way. And that's what is corruption of power. That needs to be pointed out in this particular essay. Power as a true test for character can be understood while a person is given that particular authority, is given that power. I would say a lot of social aspects can be talked about in this particular essay, because we see this particular thing being discussed every now and then in our conversation. It is almost mentioned every day that so and so person changed while getting so and so position, or getting promoted, and so on and so forth. Towards the end, we'll be concluding this particular essay by saying, by balancing, as I said, by balancing the entire situation, that it is okay to have power, it is okay to be in leadership position, but to compromise and to be corrupted is something that should not be at the cost of other people. Because we see that this corruption that is majorly caused by the power aspect of individual, that majorly gets a hit on individual on a personal level. It majorly hits, even the organization tends to fail if the person becomes very aspirational in terms of his or her own power. And we see a lot of things failing just because a person wasn't able to balance as much as he or she should have. Moving on, we have another essay topic, another essay question, which says all ideas having large consequences are simple. In this particular question, you all need to understand the very essence of this essay as to what idea it is proposing to you, what it is trying to make you understand. in order to write any essay question, it is very important that you break down it into simpler words. And that's what we are going to do herein. It tends to generalize the idea. It is very important that you pinpoint out the sort of say error or the smartness that the commission is trying to play with you. It says all ideas having large consequences are simple. So from this particular statement, it should click you that you need to balance out the statement, because it is important to criticize herein, because understand that in society, in technology, in social, economic, personal aspect, being on extremes never helps. It tends to break down, the machinery tends to break down, and that's what is something that this article is asking us. It is telling us that okay, write something about this, that everything, whatever has a large consequence, a large result, is simple. Now we'll quickly break down and understand how to write this particular article. We will approach this particular article in a way that okay, commission, we understand and we do support your idea, and we are going to talk about the simpler ideas that had a large impact on our society. We'll be talking about the large impacts. We'll be talking about the large impacts via the simple ideas. Followed by, we'll be talking about the small impacts or even the large impacts using the large or complex ideas. These ideas would basically be talking about what? They'll be talking about the complex nature of the outcome of whatever the advancement has been. Post this, we'll be talking about another aspect which would be related to ideas, wherein we'll be trying to balance out this particular situation, and in turn we'll be concluding this entire essay. This is how we are going to approach with this particular essay. Now, while we start up with this, we see what we are doing herein is we are introducing. Then we have identified the keywords already, post which we are introducing the proposition, post which we are refuting the proposition, and towards the end we are concluding the entire essay. To quickly understand, as I said, that we'll understand the proposed idea and we'll simplify the entire domain, we see that there are certain examples that stay with us in terms of science, in terms of technology, in terms of social aspect, and even in terms of economics. So these are the aspects that today I'm going to touch for all of you in order to simplify the approach as to how we should write this particular essay. As we see that if we consider example for each, then for economics, I'll take UPI as an example. For science, I'll take the E is equals to mc square and gravity as an example. For tech aspect, if we consider, then I would say we would consider the advancements that are taking place in today's situations. We'll be touching a little upon that. And if we talk about the social construct, then we'll be majorly clicking upon the historical aspects of, say, movements that have majorly taken place in our country. So that is what we are going to touch in today's essay discussion for this particular topic. Now, if we consider science per se, then everyone would have seen an apple falling, or things being attracted to the ground, or we standing on the ground itself. Everyone would have felt gravity, but it was only then that it was discovered. And gravity is a very simple idea, as in even if we talk about it today, we see that people say ki this is such a very easy topic to talk about. It is so easy to go about this. How can nobody think of it before before the scientist does? So that's what is being talked about herein, that this was a very simple idea that was, propounded as such, that people could, be surprised that, oh, such a simpler thing could also be even talked about and be an innovation itself. There is one more philosophical aspect to it as I talk about all of this. It is, I think, therefore I am. It is also very easy to understand. I think whatever is going in my mind, that is something that defines my being, that defines my existence, that defines that, okay, I'm living. That is also very easy to construct, to understand, right? If we talk about the social aspect of it, then we see that there are various movements, Black Lives Matter, right to information if we speak about, then it is the democracy, as in it was in the society, it was going on globally, then also it was realized by our country. Then democracy is something that we can talk about, equality, whatever the rights we are practicing, right to speech, and everything that goes in a social construct. Again, it is a very easy construct to understand, but who identified it and what impact it made is something that becomes a point of discussion here. But is it all limited to such simple ideas? The answer to it is no, absolutely not. Because in present times, while we are dealing with the nuclear energy, while we are dealing with climate change, while we are dealing with all other advanced aspects, be it in terms of science, tech, social movements, because as and when we are developing as a nation, a lot of advancements are taking place at the very same time. And that's what is happening here also. So at the time wherein we are dealing with complexities like this, it is also a thing that needs to be understood and requires a mention in your essay, that it is not always that the simpler things lead to a larger impact. It is also the complex things that leads to a larger impact. Hence, falling or exemplifying, glorifying just something as simple as that all simple ideas lead to a large impact is something which is not correct. Also, a mention needs to be made that ideas are just ideas until they are implemented. So these particular changes that basically have occurred was also because of the very fact that implementation was done, planning was done, and the idea that was propounded was executed well. And that was something that made the change. Thereby you conclude the essay for the day. Thereby you speak everything, you touch about the proposition, you also talk a little in the opposition, and then you say that ideas are just ideas until and unless they are executed, and that's when the entire situation falls in your favor and the answer for your essay is complete. It is balanced, it is opinionated, and at the same time it is complete. And that's what something that we need to cover in the aspect of this particular essay, that we need to identify the keywords, we need to understand what the essay, what the question is trying to speak to us, then we need to understand the proposed idea, maybe contested, but first supported because the question is made in such a manner. Then we need to simplify the other domains and we need to talk about the examples as such. Then we need to refute the idea, and finally we need to draw our conclusion. And that's how we are going to deal with this particular topic. Moving on to the last topic for the day, it is the cost of being wrong is less than the cost of doing nothing. You all must have heard while you were in schools, colleges, participating in a lot of events, you would have heard a lot that it's okay to fail, but at least participate. It is never winning or losing, it is winning and learning. What is all of this? All of these ideas basically come about from the very idea of this particular quote, that the cost of being wrong is less because at least you tried. But it is the cost of doing nothing is very, very greater in terms of your activity as such. If we consider this particular topic and talk about the aspects covering, we see that a lot of people on a personal level, on a societal level, and on various other levels, they tend to do nothing because they prefer something we call as comfort. They don't want to experiment. But imagine a time if your scientist Thomas Alva Edison would not have even thought about the bulb, or would simply give up that, okay, I don't want to do it. That's what the cost is we are talking about herein. That we would not have been, for a very longer period of time, we would not have been enlightened if the advancements, if the discovery of the bulb would not have taken place. He himself says that he failed 99 times. But the term that he uses is not fail, it is learn. That he did not fall for 99 times, he learned how to walk again the 100th time. He set the premise as such that, okay, we need to learn and we need to respect that learning that we get from trying, because we won't get simply anything while we just sit back, relax and procrastinate on our tasks. That is the essence of this particular essay. If we consider herein, the very important aspect that needs to be touched upon, that needs to be mentioned in the analysis of this particular question, is the art of decision making. Because to do a task or to choose to not do a task, that comes down to the very aspect of deciding as to you want to do it or not do it. That's what the importance of decision making is while we talk about going up for a task, or just grabbing up on an opportunity. That's why it is very important to mention about decision making as a process. We can introduce to the topic while starting with decision making, because here in this article it is also important to mention about the don'ts. What if you decide not to do a certain task, what that might will come with the procrastination aspect of it, that might come with the comfort aspect of it that we discovered in the previous article. When we talk about the personal aspect of the individual to discuss or to decide about not going up with something, is basically talking about the self-esteem and the confidence of the person. Because there are high chances that a person might fail, and that failure has a fear instilled in the person, and that's what herein is being talked about. That fear of failure and personal growth, although they are two unrelated concepts, they are two opposite concepts, these are the two key driving force that makes a person decide upon the very fact that, okay, I don't want to do a certain task, I don't want to act upon a certain situation. Post which we have innovation through experiment that might support our answer for the very purpose of going about that we need to take certain steps in order to drive a change. And then the economic consequences of inaction, because inaction and action is something that we need to simultaneously cover in the body of our essay, just so we can make an impact on the examiner checking our copy. If we discuss about this particular thing in a little bit detail, then we see that while we were considering the personal aspect of it, that people are afraid to fail, people are very skeptical to go about thinking that okay, I'm in a comfortable space, let's not do anything about it. I am earning a certain amount of money, or I am having a certain sense of accomplishment, I am very comfortable there, so let's not, you know, just explore more options because this is my comfort space, I am happy here. So that's what the fear of failure here in is being talked about, that the individual identifies in itself that okay, I don't want to do a certain thing, I don't want to go about a certain thing, and that's when inaction calls up, and that's when you are hindering the process of personal growth. And if you want to personally grow, then you need to, you know, leave out on all of this. And even as aspirants, it is very important to understand that okay, we need to take upon a certain decisions just so we go about and we drive the change that we want for ourselves. So that is something that can be quoted upon. Then innovation through experiments, as I talked about the Thomas Alva Edison example, and almost all the physical aspects of it and the scientific experiments and innovation that we have every now and then. A lot of experiments are such that people thought that okay, this is something that was very easy, why don't we get it, or why don't we understood it. And even the innovations that are happening in the present times, that are also being discussed, that this is something that I noted, but I did not think of it in that way. So that particular aspect can be covered in the innovation through experimentation thing, that even the smallest of the action matters instead of inaction. Then the economic consequences of inaction, herein we can talk about the black money aspect of it, the falling down of economy, recession, stagflation, disinflation, inflation, deflation. We can mention all the aspects. Whatever you have studied in economics, you can basically make use out of it in this particular topic, and you can call that if actions are not taking place, if actions are not happening as such, then problem might occur, because the economy might fall off. If there are people who are indecisive enough, if there are people who are not trying to do anything about the economy, then the economic situation can fall off. Then the social change and risk of passivity aspect, that if there was civil movement in US that was going on, wherein people of that country remained silent. Some were there who were driving the social change, but there were people who were silent, they didn't want to take any side. That's when the revolutionarists came up and say that we should be afraid of the people who are silent in the names of being friends of us. So that's the social passivity, that is the risk of passivity we are finding it in terms of inaction that we speak of, that things tend to fall off when we talk about such situation that tends to impact the entire society. It tends to wither off, it tends to give upon negative consequences as such. And that's when we talk about that inaction, you know, has certain role to play, wherein a slightest of action could drive a biggest of the change. That's the point, you know, that can be used in order to conclude the answer, that a person must always think of doing something about the thing that he or she wants to change, because simply procrastinating on the thought, simply laying back or having a laid back attitude will not drive a change as such. We hope that this particular session was of some use to all of you. We hope that the analysis that we did was comprehensive enough for all of you to understand. If in case you have feedback, if in case you have certain more perspectives to add, you are very well welcome in the comment section. Please do write back to us. Please do comment below with whatever unique perspective you have, because we also tend to learn every day with all of you. With this is me, your warrior for the day, signing off with the essay writing, essay analysis session for the day. If you like the session, do subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. Thank you so very much for joining in.